Let us talk some MMA here on the program. The host of Ringside Report Radio, Wednesdays and Fridays at 11 o'clock here on this station. Also, you can check out ringsidereport.net for the latest MMA news. You can follow him on twitter.com/Dave Simon MMA. It is Dave Simon.
It is Dave Simon.
Yes.
Yes. Congratulations to you. I am here.
All right.
Strikeforce went down last night. Nate Marquardt.
The final edition.
The final Strikeforce event ever.
End of an era.
Yes.
Yes.
Nate Marquardt was defending his Strikeforce welterweight title. He was a -325 favorite going in, but Tarek Saffiedine put a stop to Nate Marquardt with blistering leg kicks that messed up Marquardt's leg in a major way. His leg was bruised and red and swollen in a serious way pretty much in the second round of that fight, and it just got worse and worse, and you could tell he was in noticeable pain. Some of the nastiest leg kicks that we've seen in a long time. Tarek Saffiedine taking the 5-round decision, 49-46 on two judges' scorecards, 48-47 on the other. A unanimous decision for Tarek Saffiedine, who I think was expected to lose in this fight and then go off on his merry way. Whether that was in Bellator or another promotion, would have remained to be seen, but he was not expected to win this fight and make the jump to the UFC. But now that he has won, not only has he pretty much guaranteed himself a UFC contract, but he's also put himself in a very advantageous position in the welterweight division. He's coming in now as the new Strikeforce welterweight champion, and he's going to be somebody that's going to get a big opportunity now.
But that belt's
at
useless
welterweight
now, isn't it?
The belt doesn't mean anything, and he's not going to have a unification bout with George St. Pierre, but the fact that he was able to beat Nate Marquardt, the fact that he will be recognized as the last Strikeforce welterweight champion, it gives him a bigger role in the UFC welterweight division than he would have been given had he lost that fight last night with Marquardt. And now for Marquardt, you got to question whether or not the UFC will even bring him in to the welterweight division. I think they probably will, but that's up in the air right now.
Game Points here on TSN 690, talking some MMA with Dave Simon. Elsewhere, Dave, I'm watching football this weekend, and all they're talking about is specifically, of course, on the Fox channel, is promoting UFC on Fox. People are very excited about this card. To you, is it the biggest excitement around any of the UFC on Fox cards so far?
I don't think that it's as big as the last Fox card. That last Fox card with Benson Henderson and Nate Diaz and BJ Penn and Rory McDonald. I mean, that was a major, major card. But I think that there's definitely hype for this one. I think maybe, though, the main event is, lacking a little bit. It's not the marquee names that we're used to in a main event of these Fox cards, and that's because it's the flyweights. It's 125-pounders. It's a great fight, but as far as name value and name recognition for MMA fans, Demetrius Johnson and John Dodson, you don't know much about these guys, right? So that may not be the selling point, even though it will be a great fight for the UFC Flyweight Championship. I mean, these are the very best fighters at 125 pounds, so it's a great fight. Doesn't have that sizzle, but you get the sizzle with Rampage Jackson versus Glover Teixeira. Rampage, it should be his final fight in the UFC. He has said that it'll be the last one on his UFC deal, and Glover Teixeira is an up-and-coming light heavyweight. With a win against Rampage, he will catapult himself to the upper echelon of the 205 division, and then he can really make a mark. So that's a big fight, and I think that's the one that's really selling this for, MMA fans across the board, just to see Rampage again. He's a legend, and Glover's looking like possibly a legend in the making. So that fight, I think, is really selling the card. But before we get to that, in 6 days, we have UFC on FX7. Michael Bisping taking on Vitor Belfort in a very, very important middleweight contest. That one going down in Brazil. So, a lot of UFC, a lot of MMA to get to before we get to that Fox card in a couple weeks' time on January the 26th. We also have Bellator's debut on Spike this Thursday night, 10 p.m., Bellator 85. They've got a couple title fights on that card. Their featherweight and lightweight championships on the line. Then the UFC on Saturday, and then another UFC the following Saturday. So there's a lot going on.
Now, Dave, you mentioned Rampage Jackson, and for people that aren't MMA fans, you'll know him from being cast in the A-Team movie that came out a couple of years ago with Bradley Cooper and with Liam Neeson as George Papard's character, of course, from the 80s series. He was pretty good, actually, in that movie. He, showed a little bit of acting chops and admirably filled in for, a guy like Mr. T, which, how do you replace a guy like that? He's a guy who was known for wearing chains anyway, so it was a great fit. This guy telling the world he's done with the UFC, what's his future?
I don't know. And I don't think anybody really knows. I don't even know if Rampage knows at this point. I know he wants to do more movies. But the question is, do people want him for more movies? Other than that A-Team movie, haven't really seen Rampage in a lot, I don't know.
Well, he didn't have a lot of speaking. Let's just say he wasn't, he carried it, admirably. He wasn't, he didn't have any love scenes, if I can say that.
I don't think he's going to be the next Rock. Right? So you got to wonder, what does Rampage do?
I think he could be the headline guy in Bellator, that's for sure.
He could be, on the map. Yeah, he could be a big-name guy for Bellator. He'd be an interesting addition to their light heavyweight division. Or he could come to some sort of terms with Dana White and stick around in the UFC. I think that, this Glover-Teixeira Rampage fight is going to be real interesting. It's a fight that Rampage can win. I don't know if he will, but he can.
You said in the past that the people question, how much he's training and that kind of stuff, I believe, right? So is he, from what you hear, from what you're reading, is he taking this fight seriously?
Haven't heard a lot.
Or is he just finishing the contract?
Yeah. I don't know. We haven't heard a lot from Rampage recently. He's been very quiet, and usually he's a guy that talks a lot in the media, so it's hard to tell. The quiet from Rampage could mean one of two things. Either he's training really hard, so he's shutting up, or he just doesn't want to say anything because he's trying to fade away.
He has a Twitter account for people out there who do want to check him out. 375,000 followers.
Rampage for real.
Yeah, Rampage, the number 4, Rampage for real. Quentin Jackson, of course, is his real name. So he actually had a tweet 9 hours ago, and this time I'm doing what I know, destroy. So he's trying to hype people up.
And this is a fight that he wanted. This is a fight that is exactly the kind of opponent that he's been asking for. A guy who's going to stand and bang, who's going to exchange punches with him and look to finish the fight with a knockout. And that's what Rampage has been asking for. A guy who will stand in front of him and trade shots. And, he's tired of wrestling what he calls wrestlers. Guys like Ryan Bader, who beat him in his last fight. So Rampage wants to step back in there with a guy who will throw hands, throw leather, and Glover Teixeira is definitely that guy. It's just going to be a matter of, can Rampage take his punch? I think he can. I think it's going to make for an amazing fight in a couple weeks' time.
He is Dave Simon, Dave Simon MMA on Twitter.com, or check out the website ringsidereport.net. Dave will be back this coming Wednesday, 11 p.m.
And we are working on Tarek Safadine, the man who beat Nate Marquardt last night. There is a possibility that he join us this Wednesday night. We're still working things out, but tune in on Wednesday, and we'll probably have a couple surprises for you on the show.
All right, there you go. Thanks so much, Dave.
Thank you.